What's
You're
your
doing such a
question?
good job with the spotlighting.
I know, I'm such a pro at this.
Yeah.
Okay, here I am.
Bye.
Yeah. Well, I may be in a different model than most of you because I'm self-publishing a book. It's a children's book, and I'm
Cool.
also illustrating it. And I had an agent who really loved it and shopped it for me, and nobody picked it up. And I really believe in this book. I have people coming up to me saying, when is this book coming out? I really want to see it. I'm not having a lot of problems with how to market after the fact. I mean, I'm a teacher. I do have access to schools and presentations, and I'm in an active writers group, and I'm using someone from the local bookstore to help me with the book. So I have a foot in there. But everyone's saying to me, you know, you really need to start promoting this book about 6 months before it comes out. I have no idea how to promote a book that isn't, I mean, it's written and it's illustrated, and I've gone on Instagram and I've shown illustrations and I've talked about it, but they've seen all the illustrations now, you know, and I'm not quite ready to unveil the cover, and I don't know what to do. And it feels like, look at me. I'm, you know, what do I say without dunning people?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you have such a good structure already. Like just all of the variety of things that you mentioned is a really good setup for a successful book launch. Yeah, I think 6 months before, 3 to 6 months, depending on like your printing timelines, is a good timeline. Most actually all publishers now work on a pre-order basis. So getting people to buy the book before it's on sale. So like, not to go too in the weeds, but like originally pre-orders were meant to get books on the New York Times bestseller list, because any sales that happen before the book goes on sale count toward that first week of sales. So that's how books are like instant New York Times bestseller, is because everybody pre-ordered the book. So that's why people are telling you to start early. When you share that content, make sure you have a call to action, which will be like, go pre-order my book on, you know, Amazon or at your local bookstore, wherever books are sold. Making sure that people do that. I mean, you may want to do just 3 months just to kind of like
I don't think I'm at a point that they can pre-order it yet. I mean, I have to have, you know, I'm having a problem now because I have several professionals that are very good. One to help me get the book ready for Ingram Spark, and one, you know, to scan all the art. However, I think I'm just going to bite the bullet and go out and pay for it, because when people are doing you a favor, no matter how good they are, you're on their timeline.
Yes.
And so,
yeah, so
know, I'm ready to go.
I would say hold off on doing the promotion until you have an action that people can take. And you want that action to be pre-ordering the book.
Okay.
So you want to wait until it's actually listed online. So wait until, I think you said Ingram Spark, wait until it's actually up in the catalog, and you can share a link that people can click on and go pre-order it.
Okay.
Right. That is
For
like,
that, you can talk about like writing the book. You can build sort of your brand as a writer. Like, I'm so excited about this, and your writing life. But when you want people to hear about the book, you want them to be able to buy the book.
Right. I also want to thank you.
That's actually a really, really important tip, because a lot of people forget that it's like any effort that you put into something that gets someone to a point where they want to buy your book and you don't have a book to sell them is wasted energy, and you will not get those people back. Don't think that you can put them on a list and then, you know, 4 months later, it's like, here's my book, it's ready now. It's like, by that time they bought other books, you know.
Thank you. So I don't have to start as early as I thought then.
No.
Yeah, wait until you've got
the book listed. Come back, Pamela, and I'm gonna say that you do have to start at least 3 to 4 months early.
That I can do. And
the reason why is that reviews are critical, and the reviewers will not review you until you have a whole book, a facsimile called an advanced reading copy, and they take 4 months. They want it 4 months before your declared publishing date. So I have had so many people, as a publishing consultant, I've had so many people come to me and say, oh, you know, my book didn't really take off. What can I do now? And I'm like, you're too late, because a big part of the book taking off is getting that review packet out there and trying to get as many reviews as you can, and as many interviews to get blog interviews and everything. All of that needs a complete book 4 months before it's published. So if you're self-publishing, everyone, you have to behave like the big publishers, which is you have to be ready way in advance. Okay. Okay, so we'll move on to next. Thanks, Pam.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And Joy, you are up.
Great. Hi. You've raised so many questions that my original question has kind of changed a little bit, but I think I'll go back to that to start. The one thing I wonder is, like, for example, there seems to be a heavy emphasis on social media marketing. And if your customer, or you think who your target reader is not social media savvy, say like an older book club woman reader. Like, for example, I don't know what you in your industry, like, to segment your readers. Like, for example, when I think of women in book clubs, I think of women in their 40s and older that are in book clubs. And depending where on the age scale, you're more social media savvy. And so when you look at marketing to those people who go down on the social media savvy level, do you gear things differently in your marketing packages to those people? I guess that's the best way to ask my question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think Sharon mentioned TikTok earlier, and I would say that TikTok is like the 30s and under. My parents are grandparents and they're on Facebook all the time. I think Instagram's largest user demographic is people in their 40s. So I think our perceptions of who is where on social media are a little bit, I don't know. We always think it's like for the kids, but it's, Sharon's on Facebook and Sharon is, 40 years old. 40 years old. So definitely like changing expectations all over the place. There are some really good resources online for learning about demographics. I really like HubSpot. I'll put it in the chat in a second. But they have some good analyses on like the breakdown of age by platform, who's on Pinterest. Everyone thinks it's just white women on Pinterest, and it mostly is, but it's also some other people. So you can look into those kinds of things. I guess I would say if you have an idea, back it up with data. Because, like even what I said about like TikTok, like, oh, it's 30s and younger. I should probably look into that and make sure that, the 40-year-olds are not on TikTok, because I could be speaking out of turn there. I'm gonna put HubSpot in the chat here. Where's the chat? There it is.
Does that answer your question, Joy?
It does, but it does. The other question is, what did you do for marketing before social media?
Print ads. Print ads, mailers. What did we do like before email? I mean, honestly, like if we're thinking about online platform, I would encourage everyone to really think about starting a newsletter. If you let's say you have 5 hours a week, invest at least 3 or 4 of them in the newsletter, and then the other in social media, because newsletters are much less beholden to algorithms. Like you're going to get, in your Gmail, you get those kind of 3 options of folders: the promotions folder and the social folder. On Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and everywhere, like you're at the whim of Mark Zuckerberg. So, and newsletters also, in my experience, marketing particularly at like big 5 publishers, they are the best at selling products, much better than social media. It'll take far fewer engagements or interactions with people to sell something in a newsletter rather than in a social media post.
Yeah, the quality of the engagement overall is just much, much higher.
Yeah.
People don't reach, they'll like opt out before. If they're opted in over years, it's because they like what you're doing and they want to hear from you. But the other thing with newsletters that I think, even though I only do mine twice a year, the other thing about newsletters that I think are really useful for you guys out there is that I hear all the time people saying, well, but I'm writing fiction, so I'm not like a nonfiction author that can build a platform based on specialist knowledge about one thing, right? But the big tip is that every piece of fiction has a theme, and that theme you can then grow in a newsletter. It doesn't matter what is it. Like it can be just, oh, my theme is romance, boy meet girl, that's my theme. But you can put together a newsletter that's about boy meets girl romances. Anything that you can write as fiction, you can foster and grow and cultivate as a newsletter. And you don't need like to be the expert about, you know, microbial, whatever. So for fiction writers, newsletters are very, very powerful.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joy. And we're gonna move to Jesse. Jesse, what is your question?
Oh, thanks so much for your time. A bit of a two-parter, if that's okay. They're related, I promise. I was wondering how close of a, I guess, like relationship / partnership you have with each of the books that you're in charge of. So in terms of like how deeply, how I guess like how detailed do you do a reading of each, or like how often do you interact and talk with the author in terms of working together and discussing these things? And then, and related to that, essentially, over in your experience and all your time working with these authors, is there anything that jumps out at you as, I guess, predictors or indicators of success people do, or aspects of manuscripts or the authors that you would say prepare them for success?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Really good two-parter. I'm going to start with the second part. I think focus and persistence tend to be like really good indicators of success. So like, you know, it's so general. But I'll be working with an author who, I worked with a woman who had like a crystal shop, like she sold crystals. And so she was like doing all her crystal shop stuff while she was working on a crystal book. And so I got maybe like 20% of her energy. And when I had it, it was like, you know, we were doing calls when she was in the car. And it just, it didn't translate into her being invested in what she was doing. And it kind of didn't translate into me being invested because I could tell that she didn't really care. So I think that the tone that you set about what you want to get done will also set the tone for everyone else's expectations around the book. I mean, with the understanding of what we talked about before, with like there's different levels of books and people have, you know, like a number of books on their docket. But I think the amount, like we were talking about, having your lists of these are my media contacts, these are my influencer contacts, these are my book clubs, these are the historical societies, having all of that and coming in with that, to me, I'm like, okay, this person knows what they want to do. Let's just do it. Instead of being like, oh, great, this is one of the million things I'm doing. So regardless of how much time you have, bring focus to the project. And then how much time I spend with authors, it depends on the author. There's a lot of people that demand a lot of attention. And so they get a lot of attention, but that's not always a good thing. I usually, like within that, if we're going with like, let's just take a 6-month timeline. Probably for the first 3 months, I may be emailing the author, you know, we'd have a kickoff call, then we'd email maybe like every couple weeks. And then closer to the book going on sale, like 2 or 3 months out, we'd be emailing or talking on the phone at least weekly. And then in the few weeks before the book goes on sale, we're like in constant contact. We're just like joined at the hip. And then if you're doing things for publicity, a lot of times you'll be like in touch multiple times a day with someone working on publicity because they need to hear back from, you know, Business Insider or whatever. So there's really quick turnaround times for that, for interviews or for media stuff, because you kind of have to jump on it while the iron is hot.
Thanks, Jesse.
That's super helpful. Thank you so much for your time.